In chapter 5, Lord Krishna describes the marks of a karma yogi and a sannyasi. He further explains why knowledge acquisition is important for a karma yogi to remove ignorance. In the concluding verse of chapter 5, Lord Krishna introduces us to the technique of meditation. In chapter 6, Atma Samyama Yogam, the Lord explains Dhyana Yogam in detail. So, meditation is necessary for both a Karma Yogi and a Sankhya Yogi. Meditation involves disciplining the body, mind, and intellect through focus on Atma. So, that's why this chapter is called Atma Samyama Yoga. So, let's move to the first shloka of chapter 6.
श्रीभगवानुवाच अनाश्रितः कर्मफलं कार्यं कर्म करोति यः स सन्न्यासी च योगी च न निरग्निर्न चाक्रियः. Shri Bhagavanuvacha, the Lord speaks, Yaha karma phalam anashritaha karyam karma karoti. So, Yaha, he, karma phalam anashritaha. Anashritaha is expecting. So, karma phalam anashritaha, without expecting the fruits of action. Karyam karma karoti. So, he who performs his karyam karma, he who performs his prescribed duties, karma phalam anashritaha, without expecting the fruits of action, saha sannyasi yogi cha, he is both a sannyasi and a yogi. Niragnihi, one who has stopped performing sacrifices, akriyaha, one who has renounced actions, na, so not, no. So one who has stopped performing sacrifices or one who has renounced actions is not a sannyasi. So who's a sannyasi? Only he who performs his prescribed actions without expecting the fruits of actions is a sannyasi.
In continuation of the previous chapter, where Lord Krishna tells why Karma Yoga is best suited for Arjuna, Lord Krishna reiterates in this verse that Karma Yoga all by itself has the capacity of bestowing Atma Tattva to a Karma Yogi. So Arjuna he's always been wanting to leave the battlefield. We've been seeing that since chapter 1. So Arjuna wants to leave the battlefield and take up sannyasa. So Lord Krishna keeps emphasizing how a karma yogi who does selfless work is the greatest sannyasi. A sannyasi who wears saffron clothes, renounces action and sacrifices is not a true sannyasi. He may have taken up sannyasa ashram, but if he does not give up desire, if he does not give up his attachment to the fruits of action, then he is not a sannyasi. So one may take up sannyasa to escape from the problems, but he is truly unprepared to, such a person is truly unprepared to become a sannyasi. So only he who performs his prescribed duties without hankering for the rewards of action is a true sannyasi. Yam sanyasamiti prahuhu yogam tam vidhi pandava nahya sanyasta sankalpaha yogi bhavati kaschana. Pandava, O Arjuna, yam sanyasamiti prahuhu tam yogam vidhi. Vidhi is no. So, O Pandava, O Arjuna, yam samyasam iti prahuhu. So, that which is called a sannyasa, know that to be yoga. He asamyasta sankalpaha kaschana yogi na bhavati. He, because asamyasta sankalpaha. So, what is sankalpaha? Sankalpaha is thoughts of the material world. So, asamyasta sankalpaha. So, he who has not given up his sankalpas, that is his thoughts of the material world, kaschana yogi. So, he is never a yogi. So, in this verse, the Lord tells us that there is renunciation in karma yoga also. In this shloka, in the first sentence, Lord Krishna declares that what is known as sannyasa is nothing but yoga only. It is a science of integrating the individual consciousness with the universal consciousness. A sannyasi who has not given up desires, has not given up the craving for fruits of action, that person is no sannyasi. He is still deluded as he relishes in worldly pleasures. He is still mistaking the physical body for Atma. So, one becomes a true sannyasi only if he is detached and performs action without interest in the fruits of action. So, in the mature stages, a karma yogi who practices nishkama karma gains knowledge and is free from delusion. Such a karma yogi is actually a sannyasi. Arurukshormunir karma karanamuchyate yogarudasya tasyaiva shamah karanamuchyate. Yogam arurukshoho munehe karmam karanam uchyate. Arurukshoho, who aspires to attain yogam. So yogam arurukshoho, for the aspiring muni, for the beginner who wants to attain yogam. Okay, so arurukshoho munehe karmam karanam uchyate. So for the beginner, for the spiritual aspirant, for an aspirant who wants to achieve yogam, karmam karanam uchyate. Action is said to be the means. Tasya yogarudasya samaha eva karanam uchyate. For the yogi who is established in yogam, yogarudasya, shamaha eva karanam uchyate. Inaction is said to be the means. So after studying and understanding the second shloka, one may get a doubt, should one practice karma yoga all the life? Lord Krishna addresses this query through the third shloka. The word arurukshaha, an aspirant, you can say a beginner. So for one who wants to realize the Atma Tattva, karma yoga is a stepping stone. So karma yoga is a must. In the previous chapter, Lord Krishna in several places tells Arjuna that karma yoga is necessary for ordinary spiritual aspirants like us. Jumping to sannyasa yoga is dangerous. The practice of nishkama karma without ego purifies mind and helps in knowledge acquisition. Once the mind is purified, it may soon lead one to renunciation, and it culminates in dhyana yoga or meditation, which helps one in merging the individual consciousness with the universal consciousness. So what are the various steps for an arurukshoho, spiritual aspirant? Perform all Vedic activities, all prescribed Vedic activities in a detached way without ego. Now the practice of this nishkama karma over a period of time leads to introspection and knowledge acquisition, culminating in meditation, where one is absorbed internally and has no inclination for external activities. First step, one has to perform the prescribed activities. Only after he has reached a mature stage, after acquisition of knowledge, after meditating on the Atma, when he has reached a mature stage, then giving up karma is the means. Yada hinendriyarteshu na karmasvanushajjate sarva sankalpa sannyasi yogarudastadochyate. Yada indriyarteshu na anushajjate karmasu hi na. So yada, when, indriyarteshu na anushajjate. Indriyarteshu is the sense objects. Na anushajjate, when there is no more interest, when there is no more desire for indriyarteshu, for the sense objects. Karmasu hi na, even for action. So there is no more interest for the objects of senses and action. Tada sarva sankalpa sannyasi yogarudaha uchyate. Then he has renounced all sankalpa. Sarva sankalpa sannyasi. Sannyasi is one who has given up. So sarva sankalpa, he has given up. He has taken sannyas from all sankalpas, from all worldly thoughts, worldly desires. Then yoga rudaha uchyate. Then he is said to have attained yoga. So in this verse, the Lord describes the qualities, the signs of a person established in yoga. Number one, absolute detachment, no interest in the fruits of action. Maybe one can, dedicate all actions to the Supreme. By doing that over a period of time, one will be able to develop the ability of giving up the interest in the fruits of action. So first condition is absolute detachment. Second, he must not have any interest in indulging in sensual pleasures. So once he satisfies these two conditions, he is ready. He is qualified for the dhyana yoga. He is qualified for meditation, which is a science of merging the individual consciousness with the universal consciousness through meditation. So Lord Krishna is instructing us to go step by step. He recommends us that we practice karma yoga first to be completely free from desire or interest in sense objects. So control of body, mind and intellect has to be developed, and for this karma yoga is a must. उद्धरेदात्मनात्मानं नात्मानमवसादयेत् आत्मैव ह्यात्मनौ बन्धुः आत्मैव रिपुरात्मनः. So atmana atmanam uddharet. Uddharet is elevate. So how do you elevate? Atmana atmanam elevate. Uddharet. So one should lift oneself through one's own effort. Atmanam na avasadayet. So avasadayet is degrade. So atmanam na avasadayet. One should not degrade oneself. Because atmayeva atmanaha bandhuhu. The mind, the self, atmayeva, the self only is atmanaha bandhuhu, is the best friend. Atmayeva atmanaha ripuhu. So only the self alone is one's enemy. So self is both the friend or enemy. It is up to us. One should use the self to elevate oneself, and one should not degrade oneself. So in this shloka, Lord Krishna tells us that we should use our discrimination and make choices accordingly. The word atmanaha refers to the mind. So through thinking process, by exercising discrimination, one should understand that sense objects is a cause of all bondage, and being free from attachment to these gives us liberation. So by disciplining ourselves, by practicing nishkama karma, by reasoning, one should elevate oneself and move towards spiritual objectives. So you are what you are. So the mind inside you is your friend, and the mind can be your enemy also. So it is up to us, it's up to each of us to discipline the mind, cultivate good thoughts in mind, clear the mind of all evil thoughts on worldly matters. So this sloka gives us an important message. Your mind can be your benefactor. It can be the worst malefactor also. So one needs to have a clear and lucid mind with positive thoughts. When you have these positive thoughts, it's a benefactor. So let us condition our mind to think positively. Let us condition our mind to elevate our lives. For an uncontrolled mind is a worst enemy that propels us to commit mistakes. Bandhura atmatmanastasya yenatmaivatmana jitaha anatmanastu shatrutve vartetatmaiva shatruvat. Yena atmana atma jitaha. So jitaha is win, conquer. So atma here refers to the mind. So that jivatma which conquers the mind, tasya atmanaha atma bandhuhu. So for that person who has conquered the mind, for him atma is a bandhu. Okay, the self is a friend too. But anatmanaha, for one who fails to conquer his lower senses, atma eva shatrutve vartate. The very self, atma eva, the very self works like shatruvat shatrutve vartate. It works like an enemy. So after understanding shloka 5, one may have a doubt as to for whom mind is a friend and for whom the mind is an enemy. So Lord Krishna replies in this shloka that for a person who has controlled the senses, mind and intellect, and who has conquered the lower nature, mind is a friend. So for one whose sense and mind is uncontrolled, the mind is an enemy because the person has not conquered his lower nature. He is disillusioned and his mind is still attached to sense object that brings self gratification. So mind is a cause of bondage and mind is a cause of moksha as well. So to control the mind and to make the mind our friend is a precondition for dhyana yoga or meditation. Jitatmanah prashantasya paramatma samahitah shitoshna sukha dukkeshu tata manapamanayoho. So Paramatma samahitah. Paramatma, the supreme self. Paramatma, is samahitaha, firmly established. Established in whom? Jitatmanaha, self-controlled man. So Paramatma is firmly established in a self-controlled man. Now further explaining who a self-controlled man is, see, Shitoshna Sukha Dukkeshu Tata Mana Apamanayoho Prashantasya. So who is Prashanta is one who is calm, tranquil, so who is serene. When at what situation is he calm and serene? When faced with Shitoshna. Shitoshna, when faced with the opposites of Shita Ushna, heat and cold. Sukha Dukkeshu, happiness and sorrow. Tata Mana Apamanayoho, Mana, honor and dishonor. So Paramatma is established in that person whose mind is Jitatmana, whose mind is well controlled and who is equipoised and unaffected by the dualities such as joy and grief, heat and cold, honor and dishonor. And when the mind is tranquil, calm, one realizes the Atma and gets liberated. So Paramatma means the exalted Atma. So the Atma in an individual is referred to as Paramatma. One who is in dhyana, in deep meditation, perceives and realizes this Paramatma. So to summarize what we've covered in the first sloka of chapter 6, the Lord tells us that only that person who is free from desires and is uninterested in the fruits of action is a sannyasi. Action or karma yoga is necessary for a beginner or a spiritual aspirant. To be established in yogam, that is meditation, one should give up sankalpa. Sankalpa, desires or thoughts on material or worldly objects. One should elevate oneself through one's own efforts and not degrade oneself. The self can be your friend or enemy. That is, the mind can be your friend or enemy. Paramatma is firmly established in Jitatmana, one who has conquered the mind and one who is equipoised.